The idea is just taking your business from routine to ritual, because as artists and business owners, we've all heard best practices, and it's easy, I think, to fall into a routine that no longer serves you, or that was great for someone else and not for you. And even if you're 100% happy with your business right now, I still find it's useful to check in cyclically, whether it's by the season, whenever I'm feeling off, and just test for resonance. And like I'm saying here, step into possibility that there could be more ways to bring support and a feel of nurturing and sustainability to your business. So that's what I want to offer you today, is just some places for consideration around that.
You okay with the void?
So for those of you who don't know me, I would bet that I do know some of you who will be watching this replay, but I'm Nikkita Cahoon. I'm a multi-passionate artist, like I'm sure many of you are. And my core focus for my business is designing immersive brands, expressive and personable brands for my fellow creatives. So I started as a freelance designer as a new mom, and I really had no intention going into starting my business. It was sort of this survival and scarcity mode of, I had been on hospitalized bed rest. My daughter was born prematurely, and I was just kind of coming up for air and like, okay, let's do this. Let's figure it out. And with that, starting a service-based business in particular, I was giving to my family, I was giving to my clients, and I found my way back to my own creative practice through daily rituals. And that is why I actually rebranded as Ritual Morning Studio, because it became foundational for how I viewed business. Even then, this was a few years ago. And I still find grounding in my own rituals, and have found that I have more to give myself and my clients as a result. And that's why I'm so passionate about it, because I think when we're thinking about commissions, when we're thinking about working for other people, even when we're still putting our own work out in the world, but thinking about that end audience, buyer, collector, of course, we have to have them in mind. But I think when we step back and prioritize what matters most to us, it also serves those people as well. And I just wanted to share, when I say ritual, it's not like this, like it can be these like really fun, magical things, but it can also be really simple and grounding things, like morning pages, like always having a cup of tea or a beverage throughout the day that just makes me smile, walking and wandering, reading romance novels just because they're fun and I know there will be a happily ever after, my Friday morning Grey's Anatomy, even though it probably doesn't need 18 seasons. And instead of starting my day at 9 o'clock, I'm going to spend an hour watching that. So I wanted to share a few of the things that have grounded me over time, so that you know it's not this lofty, unattainable thing.
Can I share my recent one?
Oh, please do.
Sitting outside with a pot of flowers by me and just watching it come in and seeing, like, maybe it's a wasp or a hummingbird or whatever. It's just so relaxing and lovely.
I'm really not always the best at just sitting and watching like that. So I always like hearing when people are. Another one that I found, my winter one, was a workday bath. And so I would just like, instead of like, you hear for self-care, take a bath, whatever, and that's great. But it's usually like at the end of the day or at the beginning. But we redid the bathroom that's right across the hall from my studio and got a new bathtub. And it gets really cold down here because I'm in the basement in Midwest winter. And my fingers sometimes were going numb because it was just like so cold despite the space heater. So at that point, I was like, I'm going to take a bath. And it might have been like 2 o'clock. And it felt like rebellious at times to be like, I'm supposed to be working, but I'm going to take a bath. And so that was my favorite winter one. And I also learned that something about baths that I kind of intuited, but didn't know that, you know, it stimulates your parasympathetic nervous system. And because it's like, it engages all parts of the body, it also then engages both parts of the brain. So where usually one side or the other is fighting, they kind of like work together in a way where they're not overriding. And that's why you get such good ideas in the bath.
I don't think that, well, maybe you did. I think we might have talked about it a little bit, but I'm glad you reiterated it because I didn't remember it. But I'm with you. Like wintertime, middle of the day baths, except I tend to work in the bath.
Oh, I do sometimes too. And that's the other thing is
I like it.
Yeah, I think for my nighttime baths, I try to say, all right, you're not going to be like on Instagram or whatever, but
Sure.
I kind of like viewed it as an extension of my office. I've definitely voice messaged you on Instagram from the bath before, and it feels fun to do that too. Like I can work in here, that's fine. I don't have to feel guilty, or I can just like bring my Kindle and read that romance book that I started this morning. So freedom to do whatever and enjoy whatever and let the ideas percolate too. So I'm glad I got to share that with all of you because I forgot about that one. So a caveat, while self-care and rituals are the cultural buzzwords right now, I just want you to know it's not about being trendy. It's not being overcomplicated or prescripted. I want this to be an invitation to recenter your business around what matters most to you and ensure that your business gives as much or more that you give to it. We kind of talked about this earlier, that especially like if you've started and you're kind of figuring things out along the way, you can really lose perspective and just keep doing business as usual. And the biggest thing is though that we get to do this. We started this because we wanted something different. And so I always think it's an opportunity to remember that you don't have to do business as usual. So you can actually find joy in building a business around doing something that you love, and you get to do something that you love and it pays you. So what is better than that? Like, what a gift.
Nothing.
Yes.
Well, almost nothing.
Yeah, but still. It's a great thing that we get to do. And so this reminder that the beauty of rituals is the element of magic that they bring. So unlike routines where they may repeat and they may box you in, they don't have to happen in a certain way or time. You can discard what's no longer serving you. So the ritual that was so grounding yesterday doesn't have to be the ritual that anchors you in today. So they can disrupt, they can delight, they can spark curiosity, and they can ground you. And so it's something that can continue to evolve over time. And I think sometimes that can be the little signal to you that your ritual is becoming routine if it's something that you were excited about and then you're just drudging through it. Even something like morning pages where Julia Cameron swears by doing them every day. I'm an artist. I'm going to break those rules. I'm going to use it when it's useful to me. I'm going to type it instead of handwrite it if it feels better that day so that thoughts can get out as fast as they're coming through my mind. Or I'm just going to take a break if it feels like I'm tired of listening to myself and this is just digging me further in a mindset I don't want to be in. So you can, take this by the day, by the week, by your cycle. It can evolve, and just know that you don't have to cling to any one thing. Anything can be a ritual if it's something that feels good to you. I like things that engage the mind and the body, and again, just bring delight.
So can I interrupt for a second?
Yes.
I am curious. You said if it's not really serving you, you can change it. But how do you evaluate day by day? What do I want to do today? Like, is that a thought that goes through your mind and then you make a choice? Or is it something that you just kind of fall into what you feel like doing?
Even that kind of changes from day to day. And I will say, like, some rituals, it's good to take through a whole cycle and to continue with them. And even like, for example, something like morning pages, I might feel that it's a little off and then continue anyway until I know that continuing didn't feel right. Because sometimes pushing through does bring something worthwhile. And I kind of, for me, it is over a season where something will feel really nourishing for a few weeks or a few months. But then as the season changes, I'm like with the bath, that's not going to feel good in the summer because I'm already hot and hot water isn't going to do anything for me. So it might be that I shift to walking, and maybe I'm always listening to this one song. So Sometimes it is daily where I just ask myself, like, what's the one thing that's going to feel good? If I didn't do anything else today, what's going to like bring me back to center, help me like feel excited about facing this day? And so sometimes I'm just going to keep reading that book that I started last night and allow myself to read the whole thing or read for a couple hours before I do any work. And I'm going to count that as work, because
you should.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just redid one of my pages in my planner, and it was time blocking by a couple, like 3 categories for art, relationships, and marketing. And I was like, you know what? I don't want you to plan this ahead because day by day, you're not going to feel the same. So let's take out all that and instead time block work, play.
Yes, I like that.
Gotta have that extra time.
You do.
Or not extra time, because it's not extra time. It's part of the business is to have that play and rest and ritual and magic.
Yeah. And I think I talk about this later too, but when you give time to those things that just feel good and maybe don't feel directly related to the work that you have to do that day, they still heighten your focus and your awareness, and again, bring that grounding so that your time is more impactful when you do switch to that highest work.
And it also impacts in ways you never think it's going to.
Absolutely. Like you can't necessarily go in saying it's going to bring me from A to Z, but it I think brings an openness so that there's more possibility, which I'm all about. I kind of already talked about this a little bit, that and we were already hinting at the Parkinson's law too, that idea that the time you have, the task that you have to do will stretch to fill the time that you give it. And so why not prioritize these things that feel like ritual, that feel good to your mind and your body and all of that? And do we really we already know we don't need an 8-hour workday, but we still fall into that sometimes as new business owners where we're like, oh, I've got to mimic what I was doing over here. And I know when I had my preemie, I was like, oh, I only have 30 minutes when maybe she'll nap, and like as they get older, I only have 2 hours. And then looking back, I'm like, that was enough. Why would I give it more time? Now I could give it more time, but do I need to? And what is the thing I want to be spending my time on? And how can I restructure my days to really prioritize that?
And I will say, even as someone who's been in business for, I mean, if you count all the businesses, a long time, but it's a constant recentering to remember that it's not like you just snap out of it one day and then it's gone. It's like you have to constantly remind yourself those things.
Yeah. And I think, like I said, for me, I like to check in with all of this regularly because, again, what felt right in one season may not feel right in another. What wants to be prioritized now may be different, and what your deepest work in this season may shift and evolve too. And I've shared this with you before, Jessica, that a daily drawing project that I started, my main goal was I'm going to get up early so I have this time for myself before my kids get up. But of course, kids have that sixth sense of, you're getting up at 5 a.m. Well, I'll join you. And so not only was I doing something I didn't want to do, I am not a morning person, but it didn't even bring me what I thought it would. And I was scratching and clawing and saying, this is going to be my time. But then I had the shift of, I can invite this in. She can sit beside me and I can honor this thing that is maybe unfamiliar and I haven't shown that was a priority to me before, but I'm going to keep doing this thing. You can come alongside or you can do your thing. And there's room for that. And again, it's like, instead of like clawing and create like setting that space apart, it's allowing that space to fill everything else. And that was really freeing for me because not only did it impact me, but it impacted my whole family. And it was a gift for my kids as well for them to see me like finding this new thing that meant something to me, rediscovering this thing. And they had their own discoveries along the way. And so that idea of grounding in ritual, whatever it looks like for you, can really reshape your mindset, and it has that ripple effect. But that was several years ago. And like we were saying, I've been in business for a long time, but I had to do that again. And many of us probably had to do that during the pandemic, where things that were working for us, life didn't look the same anymore. And so as a service provider, I had projects that might span months at a time, and my headspace was stretched for those months as well, where I'd just be carrying this project with me. And even though it was enjoyable at times, it started to feel heavy. And I think that was true really even before the pandemic started, but it was just glaringly evident when I had a 6-year-old in my lap that had to watch virtual school, and I couldn't go and set myself apart and really be thinking for weeks on end about this creative problem I was solving. It just wasn't sustainable. And so instead of, as things got back to normal, it was an invitation to reimagine, do I want to go back to this? The same as when I was thinking, oh, I only have a couple hours to work. I had that question, do I want projects that stretch for months at a time? And so for me, that's shifted to working with clients in a very intensive format, where they'll come on and work with me for a day or two, and we get to that deepest work. And then it's about building a structure around that. And for you, it might not be about clients or working in an intensive format, but it is an invitation to figure out, what is my deepest work and what support and framework can I build around that to nourish it more and to allow myself to spend that time, and also just to create space so that I can be doing that and loving that when the time is right, but I also have room for all the other things that matter to me.
Can I?
Yes.
What you said. So I just wanted to reflect back to you what I heard you saying, which was, I didn't change my whole business. I took stock of my priorities. I saw it was what I wanted to create in my life, and I didn't blow up my business.
Yeah.
I just reframed how I looked at it, and I problem solved and thought creatively and said, how can I do this in a way that serves me best?
Yes. Yeah. And with things like that, we always tend to think that people are going to come at you like, what are you doing and why? But they're not paying that close of attention. So it's always that internal work of, how can I make this better for me? And then I get to just state that to the people that are coming into my realm, like, here's this opportunity, here's this way we work together, come on in. And if you have that grounding, they'll come along with you. Maybe they have some questions, and that's fine. We're always open to conversation. But yeah, like you said, it's not like this, I'm chucking everything out. Although there were days that it felt that way, because it was different from what I was doing before. And I had to figure out what this was going to look like. But it wasn't just like this major thing. Like, from the outside looking in, people may not have noticed, except where I shared from my excitement. So,
yeah, which you should do.
Absolutely. And we'll be talking about that too.
Okay.
So, why rethink or revisit, especially if it feels like things are going well. Like, this isn't a, like, we're here to fix some problem sort of thing. But it's just this chance to experiment and play with business, because you get to do that with your art. You get to do that with whatever your creative calling is. And why shouldn't your business be this creative not problem, but this creative opportunity? My word for the year is fun. I want everything to feel fun, and I want to be happy to come to work every day. And of course, there are things that are never super fun and exciting, like accounting. And that's why I just hired that out, because it was not fun. So like, here you go. So, and we can't always do that, but we can find ways to make it more rewarding or make it more playful with, if it's something like accounting and we're not numbers people, then maybe it's like, we start with like our favorite bite of chocolate, and we make the surrounding so nice, and we limit that. So we're only doing it for 15 minutes, and then we'll come back to it another time. So we always have these invitations and these places where we can bring more play and experimentation. And again, for me, it was about relieving that mental load, because I did restructure how I worked with clients. It just meant that I wasn't having to carry that over at the end of the day. I'm still thinking about my business, but I'm thinking about it as a playful way, and I'm not thinking about caring for other people and what they need when I go to sleep at night, because we met that need during the day. They can come back with something new and we'll continue that conversation, but we get to kind of like that kind of constraint. And I find that true in my creative practice as well. When you have these constraints and you have these things, then it leaves room for space and experimentation. And so for me, that like finding ways to bring intensity and focus to the deep work that I'm doing then also brings room for mastery and surprise. And so, and again, it's like one of those things with like any creative practice. I've studied creative writing, I've studied fine art. Really anything you do, people are always telling you, you must do this daily to master it. You must always be doing that to be a good artist, to be a good writer, to be a good whatever. But I bet a lot of you, like me, are multi-passionate. So it's like, well, how many hours are there in a day to spend 2 hours writing, to spend this much time painting, to spend this much time doing this and that? And if you are familiar with Do Less by Kate Northrup, have you read that, Jessica?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. She talks about like, yeah, she talks about there's the 24-hour cycle, which really matches more of a masculine energy. And then there's like the full cycle that kind of goes along with our own body's rhythms or with the moon, whatever it is that you relate to. And that's kind of a more feminine energy. And learning that really like helped me see that I can lean into those rhythms and it doesn't have to be this thing that I do every day. And that again, like means that that focus time that I do intentionally give it is just so much deeper and more satisfying. And I'm relieving that guilt and that mental load of have to be doing this daily or I'm not an artist,
I'm a huge believer in that process. I've heard it taught a couple of ways, but I love it so much that like even in my planner, I call it winter, spring, summer, fall.
Yeah.
But it just helps you prioritize like what, oh, thank you, baby, what you should be working on and what feels good for you to be working on. And you can always get everything done.
Yes.
Which is the most amazing part of it. You're not like forcing yourself to do anything. You just wait till you're in the right energy.
Yes, absolutely. And I think obviously less time equals less stress, and you can release perfection too, because if you're giving yourself a certain amount of time, maybe sometimes you are so in the flow, you keep going. But I think it also helps you release that expectation that this thing has to be perfect. It really does become about just going there and trusting your inner knowing and like putting less pressure on the final result, because you know that you've created the structure where you can go to that place anytime. And so you can revisit when that cycle comes around again. So where this started for me was actually, I was creating this framework. It's based on the Genius Model framework by this guy, Simon, but I haven't even watched the video that he did about this. I've just kind of heard it told a few times and made up my own approach to it. But the idea is like people can get to know you at certain points. And if you think about it as a cycle, then you have something for each cycle. But that doesn't really matter to you. What came from this though was that I thought I was creating something for my clients in my business. But I realized this framework has served me everywhere else. And I can see it as just, these are my natural rhythms and it can be adapted to how I frame my business. And again, it's like that idea of a simple constraint offering spaciousness and room for exploration. So for me, it's root, ritual, and reveal. And the root and the reveal become the scaffolding for where I want to spend most of my time, which is the ritual. And so with that, these steps, I wanted to kind of just take you through where I started with my clients, but then what root, ritual, and reveal could mean for all of us as we think about our businesses. And a lot of these are similar to questions I would ask my branding clients, except that we're not so much talking about your collector, your audience. We're just kind of going to that core of who we are and why we're doing the things that we're doing, which we would always ask from a branding standpoint. But here we're looking at our business and sustainability. So when we go to the root, it's about discovery or rediscovery if you're doing this again, because we probably all ask these questions, right? These aren't new questions, but it's just an invitation to ask them again and see what has shifted for you. So this is the place that we find grounding and clarity, and it's what informs what comes next. And I know, Jessica, I think you talk about it as the essence or the core. And so the most important question we've been kind of talking about all along is when you think of your business and not just your art, which we already know you love most of the time, but does your business feel sustainable? Does it feel nurturing and supportive? And these could be other words. These were the words that I was really craving at the time. And in another season, I may need it something slightly different. But, is it something that will support you and hold you? And is it actually an extension of or support for your creative practice? Because so many of my art friends, like, I'll catch up with someone and they'll say, oh, I'm trying to get back to the studio. I've been launching this collection. I've been marketing this collection. I've been at this show, but I really haven't painted in a long time. And of course, that's kind of natural for the fact that you're putting your work out into the world when we get to that reveal stage. But we want it to feel like a natural extension so that that creative practice is prioritized, because that's how you're going to make the work that you're so excited to share about. That's how you're going to feel like your business is sustainable, because you're going to find your grounding there. And again, I talked about this before, but you get to make art for a living. Like, I remember Aaron Draplin, he's a designer. I went to a workshop with him and he was like, we get to do this. Like, we're not out there like digging and doing this physical labor or doing all these things, where we get to like do this thing that started out as just this joy and this fun thing that we got to do. And we got to turn it into something that pays us. So like, I just want to remind you of that, because it's easy in the daily slug of things to forget what a gift that is. And so it's a good question to ask yourself, why do I want to? Why did I choose this? And maybe sometimes the answer is I don't want to for a season. And as multi-passionate people, we may shift and do some other things for a while, or fill our cup in other ways and some of the talents and skills, like I was talking about at the beginning. Like, sometimes that isn't my highest work. Sometimes I want to be doing these other things. But when it is aligned, why is it? Remind yourself of that why, so that you can, again, find that clarity and root back in that why. And then I would just ask, what brings you the most joy? How do you want to spend your days? And is that how you are spending most of your time?
There's a trending audio, at least in my feed, going around that is something like, stop being a content creator, just live your life and the content will flow out of you. Something along those lines. I'm probably getting it wrong, but I feel like that's what you're saying here. Like, if you just are loving everything that you're doing, you're just going to naturally share it, and you're not going to have to like analyze and think and plan so much that it's just going to work better.
Yeah. I mean, you can do it the other way, but I don't find joy there. So I'd rather it feel easy and just like flow naturally. And that also might mean there are times where you go quiet on your social media and you're not sharing because you're not in that phase of the cycle. And that's fine. Like, people like can sense the energy behind how you're showing up, and that will draw them back in if it's been a little while. Like, Instagram is my playground. So if it isn't feeling playful to me, I'm not there. And if it is, then I'm going to show up and I'm going to share from that place. And it doesn't mean you can't batch and do all of that. Like, you can kind of prepare your content from that place and drip it out, and know that the people that need to hear it will sense the energy from when you created it, and it can continue without you. That, I think that's the other thing too, is like, you are separate from your business. Like, if you can put this energy into your business can hold that and maintain it, so that you're over here doing your deep work and your business is still kind of working for you in that way. So then we get to my favorite part, the ritual, the deep work. And this is about finding your rhythm, that, we call it the zone or the flow, like finding that state. And again, like if you've done that grounding and figured out, like you're kind of back into alignment of your why, you're really clear on where you want to go and what you want to be doing, then you're naturally called to create or to get into this flow state. And so this is a place too that you can observe if you're kind of thinking about what this looks like, and ask yourself, what are your natural rhythms and how can you build and structure your business around that? If you know that you are a daily creator, what's the time of day that you always want to prioritize to get into this? Or if you know you really do go by a cycle, and if you're kind of thinking about marketing and the analytical stuff, you can't feel creative, then you can think about what time of month you're going to really go all in and set up a practice so that you can get the most of that time. And thinking about what you go to when there are no external obligations, because if you're creating a collection or you're doing something just because you think it's what's going to market well, then it's not going to be sustainable. So it's time then to get back to like, what feels really good? What do I want to be exploring and creating and putting out there? And that's
sorry.
No, go ahead. Go.
I was say I have a couple of clients that are just now like figuring this out, that are getting out of the I feel like I should into the playful experiment, and like you can just see the energy on their faces like light up. It's so exciting.
One of my favorite quotes from Lila Rogers, who is an art agent, she always says, people buy your joy. And I always just think that's a great reminder. Like, you're not trying to like guess at what you think they will buy. Like, they were drawn to you for a reason, and you need to get back to that place and find your joy so that they get to buy in for that,
Love it.
So again, like another question you can ask is, what aligns to your essence? Like if you're like really grounded in what you want to be doing with this business, with your creative practice, then how can you support it so that you have that better flow? And that can be things like how you set your time, how you set your space, what you do to like prepare for that space. For my client work, for example, if I'm going to be spending a whole day designing, then I am going to spend some time in advance gathering inspiration, getting to know the client really well, being able to kind of envision and imagine and having that in the back burner, and maybe taking notes before I get to that day so that I go in just ready. Like I have kind of a shorthand of, I can take a look at my notes, or I can take a look at that vision board that I've created. You can take a look in your sketchbook at those ideas that have been simmering, and then you're ready to just go. And maybe it's like you have your favorite supplies set just where you need them to be. You have like your favorite song that's really going to ground and anchor you and remind you of that feeling that you want this next collection or painting to have, and just kind of again building those things around it. Go ahead. I can tell you.
I just said I like that. The song idea, like having a specific song that has a specific feeling that goes with a specific series. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I tend to do that a lot. And even if it's not for that specific series, like sometimes like a song will come on while I'm working that just like really like has my like me fully in the present and in my body, and I'll just like, then you're kind of hardwired to, you hear that song, you're like, oh, I'm back there again. So anytime you notice something like that, you can kind of keep note of it. Like I have a going playlist. Like I like to feel really moody and nostalgic, in an almost painful way. So I'll go to my moody songs and be like, oh, okay. I don't have the drama in my life, but I can feel it in this music.
I remember when I did, and now I don't. That makes me feel good.
And so then, asking what are the practices, the rhythms, the mantras and supports that will help me get to that flow? Like we said, it could be a song, it could be something, but what's going to make it feel good? Because like, if it doesn't feel good, why do it? And if it doesn't, then what can we do to make it feel good? And for me, I like to engage my body and my mind. I know that like unlike many people, I know some people already paint large and work large. I am a person, my handwriting is small. I have minuscule little movements. I like tiny weighted line. And so that can get really like limited in scope to the hand. So when I notice myself getting that way, then like I want to find a way to engage my whole body, whether it's I stand and I do make some gestural marks, or I just am aware of how it feels as I'm sitting and what pressure is gathering where, what my foot is doing, even if my hand is making these small movements, just bringing my awareness back is another way that I like to recenter. And again, like if I am going to be, if it's not through my creative practice, then maybe it's that I'm dancing or doing something alone in my studio before I start, just so that I've engaged the senses and the body in a way that it's going to help me get back to that flow state.
My therapist was telling me about how when you're a kid, you run like this,
Mm-hmm.
and it just helps the energy like move through you. But then we unlearn it, and then we start running like this.
Oh, yeah.
And I think her point was that in order to like clear that and keep it moving through you and keep everything nice and aligned, you need a little bit more of this.
Yeah. Oh, I like that.
I like
I'm
it
going to
it feels
do
good.
some silly kid running in my backyard today, I think. But also I think like, how can you disrupt any sense of drudgery? Like I said, there are some things in our business that may never feel like super fun, but how can at least it feel easy or simple? And how can we break it down so it doesn't feel heavy? I think like the more we can do that, surrounding those states of flow, the better. And for some people, it might actually be batching and doing a whole day of it just so that they only have to think of it once a month. And that's great too. I think, whether you're a person who needs to just break it down and take little bites here and there, or if you're someone where I'm like, I'm just going to go all in and that feels good to me because it'll be done and I'll feel lighter, whatever it looks like for you.
Agreed.
So, we've rooted, we found clarity, we've found our flow state, and we've spent time there. And like this starts to build on itself. And that's when we get to the reveal, the manifestation of your vision. So you've done the deep work and you have all of this. And that I think is the best place for you to show up fully. And that's where you come to that place of aligned action. And it goes back to, you asked me before, do you just decide in the day? And for me, if I'm going through this cycle regularly, yes. If you follow human design, I'm a generator. I need something to respond to. Yeah.
I was going to ask you that earlier.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to interrupt.
No problem. Yeah, I'm a generator. So I have to go with my gut. I have to have something to respond to. So that means for me that sometimes it is a daily thing of the aligned action. So it might not mean like building a year plan or even a quarterly plan. It's just like, I have this vision because I'm rooted in this thing. So today, how am I serving that vision? How am I working towards that? And because I have that already, it feels natural, and I'm still working towards something bigger, even if I don't feel like I've planned it. And again, like we were talking about, when you show up from that place, the energy is different and it feels more natural and it feels good. And you have that excitement because you've been in that state of deep flow. You've had that deep work. And so, because when you're kind of like piecing it here and there and you're not intentional about it, you feel like frazzled and scattered, and maybe it happened a little bit, but you didn't give yourself the space to really go there. And so how would you share about it? How would you show up? Because you didn't get to fully experience or inhabit it. So for me, that's been the joy of exploring this kind of cycle. And so then you can ask yourself, what are the aligned actions you're called to take as a result of time spent rooted in ritual? So this means that it's not this overthinking thing. They just kind of come to you. And so like, it's just kind of at the tip of your tongue or at your fingers as you write. And you're like, oh yeah, this is what I'm going to do today. I'm going to show up in my stories and I want to share this, or I really want people to know this. I'm going to write an email. And it doesn't have to be all marketing stuff, but it is just like that visibility, whatever it looks like for you, getting your work out in the world in the way that feels right to you. And again, like this is something you do cyclically. So some seasons it might be like you've spent your winter going deep and you're like then coming out and creating this stuff. And then you're in this like summery mode. We skipped spring, but you're out there and you're showing things. So And then asking yourself, how can you share in a way that honors your intentions, that creative practice, that celebrates it, like what feels natural to you? So I think it's just like, if you can have that mindset shift, then you can celebrate with that sense of joy. And that like probably has you excited to celebrate also your process and what it's like and what that journey has been like for you. And again, people buy your joy, so they're happy to go along with you and hear about that, because it's magnetic when you are creating from that space and when you're sharing from that space. And so I'm just
It really is
this journey. Yeah.
Like, I know you've heard that before, not you, but whoever's listening, you've heard this before, but it is like, when I see someone excited about what they're doing, I want to go to their feet. I want to look at everything they're doing. And if I don't find more, I'm disappointed. I'm like,
yeah,
well, where's all the exciting stuff? Show me more. Give me more.
Yeah. And I think that's important too, not to skip this step. Like, that's, I think, one of my biggest like hang-ups sometimes is I leave the cycle incomplete. I'll go and I'll create these things, and then I have these loose ends because I never showed it, or I never like took that aligned action of, you created this thing, but you were in this like, deep state of not analyzing everything. But now is the time, like we actually look at what we did and we show what we did. And I mean, not always, sometimes it's, that wasn't meant to show, and now I'm going to kind of go through this again. But even just like having the time to engage your mind as well and look back and then look forward as well.
Yeah.
And then I just have more prompts. I'm a big journaler. I'm a big question asker.
I like it.
So, some of these we've asked in other ways, but that's also, I think, my branding background of, I'm going to ask this question to you in 10 different ways, because one might hit and one might not, and one's going to open something up. So again, what do you love about how you work currently? Like, what's already working? Can you lean more into that? Can you expand upon it? Because those are clues, right? Like the things that already feel good, we just want to be doing more of that. And, you've likely already answered this for yourself, but in this season, if you could do just one thing, what would it be? And how is that how you're spending most of your time right now? Because that's where you can recalibrate, thinking about like where you want to be spending your time and where you are, and how can you find that place in the middle where they meet?
That's such a good question.
It is.
I just saw that and I was like, if I could just do it, I don't know the answer to that. I know I think about this stuff a lot. But what's the one thing I could do?
Yeah, and that's like, that could change by the day,
Sure.
So, and then again, for me, it's what feels like play. That's my big question this year. I want it to feel like play, because then I'm excited to be doing the work and I'm excited to share it. And I wanted to ask this very specific question about commissions, because I hear so many shoulds around the commission process of,
yes,
I have to offer them all year long because that person wants this painting now, or I have to like share these things, and if they say to change it, I have to do that. But you get to invent this process. So is it something where you like having those scattered throughout the year? Or is it something where you're like, that feels good in the summer, I'm like out there and I'm open and I'm thinking through things, I don't want to put a collection out, but I like being sparked by someone liking my work but wanting something new. So I just want to remind you that there's possibility and freedom there, that your commission process, like everything in business, doesn't have to look like other people's process. And this again is, people don't know what they don't know. They don't know how commissions work necessarily if they're new art buyers. And if they're not, they also know that it looks different for every artist. So if you feel confident about it and you feel excited about it, they'll come right in. And yeah, maybe someone really did want something like right then. You probably have inventory and backstock, and maybe they don't need something custom. Like if their priority is time and getting it yesterday, then they can work with what you've already got. But if they really just want this special thing that goes along with your vision and to come along this journey, they'll be willing to wait for that. So it's kind of a random thing I just threw in there, but it's just been on my mind having talked to other artists. Go ahead.
Yeah. So you were like, earlier, we went through your cycle and it started with grounding. And I think like you said, you can't leave out any part of the cycle, but if you make sure that you are grounded, and I'm trying to say this so it comes out the right way, but I think a lot of artists feel like they have to cater everything to the other person to make them want it.
Mm-hmm.
But the more grounded you are, the more confident you are, the more you can say, this is my process and this is what I offer. And right now I'm not offering commissions. You're going to have that ability to say that back to them instead of saying, what are they going to think? Am I going to lose the sale? Am I going to, and then you get into this space where you give them all the power.
Yes. And if there were any type of business where you have this freedom, like creating art is an individual act. Like in some ways it's collaborative where there's a conversation in our head, whether we're responding to our own inspiration, whether we're responding to something we saw in the world, but we're alone there with our canvas or our paper and we're creating this thing and people were drawn to you and your vision specifically. So they're going to go along with every other part of your business that gets individualized and that supports your unique vision because they wanted that. There's an artist and a taste for every person. And of course, like they were magnetized to you, right? If you were in that flow state and you were like serving your highest vision, they want that. And they're going to come alongside you in however it is that you invite them in. And even if you think about artists throughout time, the things that get repeated are their idiosyncrasies, the special routines or rhythms that they had, how they worked, what they did. Even sometimes when they're persnickety and they were hard to be around and get work from, that's part of being an artist, that you can have those little quirks and you can celebrate them and lean into them and build your business around them. So why not? And then I would ask too, what don't you currently have time for? As we kind of go into that flow state, sometimes that means closing things off for a while of, I'm only working with these colors right now, or this type of paint or this whatever. But after you've gone through that ritual and then you've gone and revealed, you get to ask these questions again. And so as you go through the cycle, well, what's calling to you now? Like, what do you want to make room for? Is there a new technique that you want to learn? Is there something completely non-art related that you're just craving and is going to fill your well? And how can you build space for more of that too?
Can I just say, this is such a amazing presentation. And I am creating this like 4-month cycle. And the fourth one is rest, reflect, maybe do some downselling from your selling period. But like everything that you're talking about here, I feel like needs to be revisited at least every 3 to 4 months. And
I think so too. And actually, reflection is a big part of my process too. And I think somewhat it gets like it fits in that root stage. But if you're thinking about it as a cycle, it could be its own thing after that reveal of we reflect and then we go back to the root based on our reflections too. Right. So I'm glad you brought that up because it's a really key thing for me too. Not like, I don't know. I sometimes feel like we're scientists in a way, or anthropologists of like, we're looking back and like, what was that like? I'm a person, I take notes as I'm creating work too, because I know I'll forget. Like if I'm in that state, I need to scribble that phrase or that idea that may or may not make sense when I do go back and reflect, but at least there's that record of it. I have to leave myself little nuggets and little clues to come back to.
I feel you. I have to remember that.
And with all this, grace and openness are key. And for me, as Sister Karita Kent said, it's all an experiment. I don't know if she said it exactly that way, but I just love that idea that this is not static. This can change at any time. You are invited to revisit. You're invited to experiment, to explore, to change. And like I said, what felt like a wonderful ritual to you in one season, if it's no longer serving you, you can leave it behind or you can take it up at another time. And again, I totally forgot to do spell check and spell privilege right.
I'm just listening to you, so
yeah.
Whatever. Doesn't matter.
But this is our joy and our privilege that we get paid to do what we love. Yay! Like, lean in more to that. Continue to make it something that you love and question what it is you love so that it can evolve and journey with you, because we're always growing and changing and evolving as artists. We're hungry people, we're curious people, and our businesses need to be along for the ride. They need to support us through that and nurture and sustain that. But we fully recognize that monetizing your creative practice can feel draining. And that's why I think like having these cycles and these check-ins is so important, so that you can find ways to relieve some of that pressure and continue to prioritize your curiosity, because it's just natural with the creative cycle that things may stop working, because I think as humans, we need change, we need something to shake things up. And so this is permission that it can look different every day, every season, and it probably will. And that's great. If you're a person who really thrives on that routine and consistency, that can feel a little bit scary. But we've talked about ways where you can build in that structure and that scaffolding so you feel that safer to experiment as well.
And if you're watching this is probably not the case, but I also feel like I should just say it. Sometimes monetizing creative practice is not the thing to do.
Yes.
Sometimes it should just be for you, or just be for you and your family, or you and your friends, or whatever that is. And that's okay too.
Yes. I think too that there are like different facets to an art business too. So like you hear the have multiple streams of income recommendation, which can be great, but I don't feel like as you're adding a new technique or a new creative practice that it automatically has to be incorporated into your business. And having those multiple streams, those multiple passions is another way to relieve pressure of painting isn't feeling like the thing that I want to put out there. But I was having a lot of fun doing these different illustrations and they would make great prints. So in this season, it feels good to share that while I go quiet with my painting and do it just for myself. And so, it's two sides of the same coin, right? Like if it's feeling limiting to you and you want to just be doing the one thing and it feels good to just be doing the one thing and putting that out there, do that. If the one thing is feeling heavier and you don't want to, you have these other tools and resources to explore and shift. And then I just put some of my affirmations as I've gone into this flow state, and where I'm like designing in a day, for you might be painting in a day. I set alarms on my phone so that
I love that.
To remind myself that I can do this, and there's like this self-trust and this inner knowing. So even when I'm like going into this deep flow state of like, for me, it's my clients are getting a logo or a brand at the end of the day. But that doesn't mean I have to spend every minute doing that design work. So taking a pause allows for expansion. I have everything I need inside. That's where I take a lot of showers too when I'm on these days of, okay, I'm designing for this person, and part of designing for them is at 10 o'clock, I'm going to take a shower and like see what ideas come in there. And that reminder, it gets to be easy. It gets to be fun, because when you are working on a commission or working for a client, it can shift into that work mode. But you need to go back and remember, like, I've got this. Like, this is my like zone of genius. It gets to be fun. It's easy for me.
Yes.
And And then creative energy is welcome here and flows readily for me. Like, I just like to remind the universe there, like, I'm here. You can send it my way. I'm ready to receive. And then it is enough. I know enough. It all flows easily to me. I trust myself and my abundant life, energy, and insight. I have all the time I need. And the magic of that one is not, again, adding more time. It's just that the time that I've given is perfectly enough. And as you're watching the replay, and Jessica, you can tell me now, I'd love to hear any of your favorite affirmations for when you're in that state that support and scaffold you.
Well, let's see. Hold on. I have stay grounded. I have trust. I have inspired intuitive creativity equals income and easy.
Yeah.
I have let go of what is out of alignment that is required. I have follow the rabbit down the hole. Even if it looks scary, it will be an adventure.
Mm.
And then I have a couple goals sprinkled in there. But I guess I lost one, but I used to have one that was very similar to I have all the time that I need. It was more about I am the master of my own time or something like that. What was that book? You need to know about it. I'll have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
But it was about how it was in Do Less. You can create your own time. It's almost like there's Western time, and this isn't how it goes exactly, but there's the way that we have learned to think about time, and then there is time manipulation. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I'm not saying it well because I don't know it well, but I have been playing with the idea of, I only have 5 minutes. I need to do this. You know what? I'm just going to decide that's enough time. I'm going to do it. And somehow time expands and I get it done in that 5 minutes. That's the gist of it.
Sometimes it's like this fun challenge of like, what if I only give it 5 minutes? And then sometimes you don't even need the full 5 when you do that, because it's just like, here it is. So,
So you did not tell me to have those ready, but
I didn't
in my planner. So
I knew you would though.
Yeah.
And again, here's just some reminders and some additional questions. For me, ritual creates the support and clarity that elevates the everyday. And so again, what will bring support and ease to your business? And how can your business continue to work for you even when you're not in that place of that reveal and that showing up? Like, what's your business? What can you like set up so that your business can do that for you? And it's always great for me to start my day with a ritual that's meaningful to me. And as I've said, that changes from day to day. These are just some that have worked for me. As artists, like, it seems like a duh thing to have sketching on there, but I think especially if we're in the midst of a collection or we're focused on something specific, this can be like doing something completely different. Like, I love using collage as a way to warm up, where I'm not trying to do anything with an end result, but I get to sift through material and make juxtapositions and play and just see how that goes. So it can even be like switching a medium and knowing I am not showing anyone this. Like, that can be a fun ritual of I'm going to create something and I won't show it. Maybe you still will and break your rules, but it's fun to have that.
You can make whatever rules you want. You can make the rule that I get to break my rule, or it doesn't matter.
Which is liberating too. And again, a reminder to stay in your body and move throughout the day, because especially when we're in that deep work zone. The first time I did a design intensive, my legs went numb and I fell out of my chair because I sat there for 4 hours, and I don't sit in very like ergonomic ways. I'll have like a leg tucked under me, and I just was like, I was having fun. I was in the flow. Yes, exactly. I was in the flow, but it's still good to disrupt your flow and move. So that's part of why I started setting those affirmation like actual alarms, because it would just like jar me that, okay, even if you're going to stay here, it's good to, do the kid, like wave your arms.
I was going to ask, because there were such weird times. Like, is that like your reminder to take a break, or?
Yeah. For me, it would be like, I knew that I would be doing certain types of work at each time. So like sometimes I would make a note of what I thought the day would look like. And maybe it would be like 30 minutes of sketching, 30 minutes of brainstorming. Okay, now I'm going to want 3 hours to just play and make a mess. And, I break that all the time, but it's a matter of, again, noticing my natural rhythms, what's going to support that. And so I can have these built-in reminders of, okay, is this still working? Is it time to shift to the next phase of this process and move? And with all of this, be flexible and gentle. Like, flexibility, I think, is one of the greatest skills we can bring to our business, because it doesn't need to like run like this machine of always looking the same, because there are already corporations and businesses out there that you could just join if you want that. You created this because you crave something different, so it gets to look how you want it to look, and you can adjust anytime. And
that's such a good point. You can just go get a job if you want.
Yeah. And you can, if this isn't feeling good anymore, you can, and you can also come back to this. And the other thing I love to do when I go through these deep flow states, like the creative process often brings up doubts or anxiety or questions. And for me, especially when I was on the clock with clients, I was like, what's going to happen if I can't deliver? What if I can't do this thing by the end of the day? And maybe that deadline is just for yourself and you just have the goal of finishing the painting for this day. But what I have started to do is to just stop what I'm working on and journal through it. I actually, instead of keeping that all in my head, I list out like, what if I can't do this? What if this looks like crap? What if whatever? And this is what they would say. Oh, I could ask for more time. I could revisit this tomorrow. Or here's the thing that's really bothering me about this. Oh, I could try this. And so, in case that's useful for you, take notes and data along the way like that, because not only is it helpful in the moment of just working through it, it's really great when you're in that reflection stage. It's proof that you do come through the other side.
Ooh,
And yeah, like I used to, when I was doing these like 3-month-long projects, I'd spend days and sometimes a full week there of, I'm not going to get there. This isn't going to look good, because I had that time to fill, right? So that was really contributing to burnout, because it's painful to be there for so long. Like it's natural in the creative process that you're going to have those questions and doubts, but it sure is nice to spend 2 minutes or 15 minutes there instead of a week. So,
and honestly, I think that writing them down helps you stay in it for 2 to 15 minutes instead of a week, because then you can see it and it's out of your head and it's not real anymore. It's okay. I'm just going there. That's okay.
And just acknowledging these are thoughts I'm having. They're just thoughts. That's not reality. I've proven to myself in the past that I do go through it. I do come out the other side, and they just feel more manageable and smaller. And I think just that act of writing, your mind feels called to like find an answer for you. So, cuties.
Sorry, they're getting like, oh, mom.
So that's all I have. I realize I've talked at you all for a while.
No, you haven't.
I'm glad that you've interrupted me and we've been able to have a conversation. But the biggest question I want to leave you with is, what does this make possible? I'm always asking that. And again, I think bringing possibility in it is just this reminder that we get to change our minds at any time. We get to restart the cycle if we need to. We'll come back around again. Like this is not the end all be all. We get to revisit this at any time. So
I think for anything, like just relationships, business, life, art, whatever it is, you go through all the cycles. It's never, I'm on top of the world and I'm going to stay there. I'm at the bottom. I'm going to stay there. It goes and it goes and it goes.
Mom, it sounds kind of contradictory, but as like these cycles have these kind of perimeters or borders, you're blocking things off, but at the same time, it's for me as someone who's multi-passionate, I always was thinking about my designs over here, pattern design is here, my sketchbook practice is here. And this has like allowed me to see that those are just fluid boundaries and I don't need to compartmentalize like that. I can like block off the space for the work and the creative flow, but everything else kind of is permeable. And that's really freeing too.
And I found along the lines of what you're saying, but even like on a bigger scale, like if you are saying, I need to have time for family, I need to have time for art, I need to have time for business. If any of them aren't working, if you're not grounded or any of the things that you went through in your cycle, then it really kind of breaks all of them. Where you know, business, like we were saying earlier, business is not just business, it's part of your life and it all goes together.
Yeah, and we were talking about earlier, you can invite that in and you can welcome that those things have an impact on the others. And if that's the case, then when you go back to the root, you're clear about what matters in my life and how is that fueling my business? Do they intersect? Are they separate right now? And how can they inform one another even if they feel disparate?
I have a question for you. I don't know where the policeman is, but yes.
That policeman.
I think you did such a good job at this.
Policeman.
And how would you feel about me putting it on Instagram or YouTube or something?
Feel free.
Because I know that you put a lot of time and effort into it, and I think that more people should know all of these things.
This is my show
if that's
up.
Okay with you.
Yeah, this is my show up, and then I get to release it. So
yes.
This was a wonderful invitation, Jessica, because like I said, I had been like these things had been mulling for a while. So it was an invitation to, again, go deep and like explore this. And then from that place, it gets to be easy of here we are. So
here we are. And let's just float it around.
That's right.
Okay, so if someone is watching this, obviously you want them to like pick some of your journal prompts and try those on, but what would the next step with you be? You want them to join your mailing list? Do you want them to go on Instagram? Do you want them to DM you? Like what do you want?
Yeah, I'm really big about connection. So if you're watching this and we haven't talked before, I'd love for you to DM me on Instagram. It's just my name at Nikkita, Nikkita, Cahoon, Choon. And we can just have a conversation. I want to know what this brought up for you, what you're asking yourself, any answers you've found, where you are in this cycle, any of that. And from there, you're welcome to join my email list. I do send sometimes a monthly studio notes. And I talk a lot about seasons and cycles there and share where I am with that in my creative practice, as well as different things that I have going on. And I usually try to ask more questions there so we can continue the conversation both of those places.
I almost feel like you are not the same person as me, but we have very similar ideas and experiences, and the things that we care about and learn and prioritize are very intertwined. And I love that about you.
I love that about you as well. And what I also love is that you always come in with an interesting question or perspective so that we like have these commonalities, but you're going to shift and pull out this other facet. So
and same for you. You see the other side of what I see. And so it's very cool. I love doing stuff with you. I can't talk. So let's do some more.
Let's do it.
Shall we? Okay.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Nikkita. This was lovely. And I really appreciate you. Bye, sweetie.
Bye.
I want to be there.